NTP Software VFM is a policy-based tiering application that allows you to seamlessly move data to appropriate tiers of storage based on age, size, extension, and location of unstructured file data. Now, architecturally, VFM is a Windows-based software that contains three parts: the task service, which is responsible for rehydration and tiering of files, as well as monitoring real-time access to stubs on supported systems; the policy engine, which gives a web-based interface for creating new tiering policies, as well as acting as a central communications hub for all task services; and then the last architectural piece, which is a catalog of all tiered and rehydrated data, which is housed in a Microsoft SQL server and is open for reporting as needed. Now, as you see in the main VFM administrative web screen, we do have quite a bit that we can do straight from this one interface. Everything from monitoring the status of all data being tiered and rehydrated, whether that data is being requested to be tiered via right-click archiving, which is our manual archiving, which I'll show you in the demonstration here, or whether that's being done by our core tiering engine, which is a policy-based engine that will go through the designated primary tier and will look for data that meets the metrics that are set forth here, whether that's size of the files, when the files were last modified, last accessed, or created, or even the extensions of files. When files meet these metrics based on the different shares or directories that these policies are applied to, then they're queued to be tiered by the task service. We can see that tiering happening inside of our scheduled status or our on-demand status, depending on which way we've decided to tier that data, whether it's manually or whether that's automatically through the core tiering engine. Now, you also have the ability to designate when are your hours of operation. So what are the times that we want to designate as blackout windows, where we don't want to be tiering potentially in the middle of the day. We still want to allow rehydration to happen, but we don't necessarily want to be pulling more information off of the primary tier during heavy usage times. Now, we also can designate what are the types of stubs that we want on this primary tier. And you'll notice we have several different options here depending on whether you're doing CIFS or NFS tiering. I have the ability to have an active stub, which I'll show you in the demonstration, which looks like a file, feels like a file. Double click on it and it opens up seamlessly like the normal file would. This is probably the one that impacts the users the least. We also have the ability to do HTML and URL stubs. HTML and URL stubs inject a bit of a workflow where now users come to a portal where they need to request a file back. We have the ability to copy from primary to secondary and leave no stub at all, but leave the primary tier file. This is more of a backup stub, if you will, where we can back up data that's changed to the secondary tier. We also have the ability to copy from the primary tier to the secondary tier and leave no stub at all. In this particular case, this is generally done with really dark data. When we have information that may be 5, 10, 15 years old, maybe we want to move it to secondary tier and then allow users and or administrators the ability to search for that data through our recovery portal, where they can look for files based on the name of files, locations that they were in, etc. And straight from here, they can request the restore of that data back to primary tier. Speaking of secondary tiers, you'll notice here under my secondary tier storage, I have the ability to have deletion as well as retention policies to say how long I want to delete and or retain data as it hits the secondary tier of storage. So we may have litigation holds, for example, on certain types of data that can never be deleted, and then we may have certain information that we want to delete after a certain period of time. That's what these two policies are designed to do. As far as our storage configuration for secondary tier, we create storage groups. Storage groups are any number of storage platforms that we support and may want to tier out to as a secondary tier that we then group together. So for example, I may be writing out to Microsoft Azure as well as writing out to a particular CIFS location just to share on my network. And that way I can say that those two are in a group and I can write to both locations at the same time. If one of them is unavailable, I can pull the information from whatever the secondary one was. Now, seeing what this looks like to end users, if I were to log into a system as an end user here, you'll notice I do have an actively stubbed file here, which is a Word document which I could open up and have users just access seamlessly. We also have that right-click archiving I was talking about, where I can right-click and tier a file or recall a file seamlessly from here. I can do that for directories as well, where I might tier an entire folder or recall an entire folder. But if I wanted to, for this particular user, if they wanted to access this file here, they all seamlessly just need to double click on that file. What's happening right now is the task service has received a request to rehydrate that data, and sure enough, that data has come back from the secondary tier storage, and there's nothing the end user needs to do special to have any access to these files as if they normally would. This concludes the demonstration of the VFM system presented by NTP Software for tiering unstructured data out to secondary tiers of storage, whether that's on-prem or out to the cloud.